Well, welcome. Thank you for that kind reception. Many of you know who I am, but for those that don't, I'm a licensed Unity teacher, and I've taught a lot of adult education classes here in the evenings. As a matter of fact, I was in the middle of teaching a class just a year ago right now. It was March of last year, when we all go to the doctor, you know, and we go to the doctor and they go, oh, you got the flu. Oh, well, I can beat that. Or you go to the doctor and you got a sprained ankle. Oh, no problem, I can take care of that. But how many in here have had the shocking, just raise your hand if you've got this message, oh, you've got cancer. It's not the message anyone wants to hear. And oh, not only do you got cancer, you got stage 4 cancer. And it was just a year ago, it was March of last year, when I got that message. And I was at St. Anthony's Hospital. They went in and took some biopsies and looked around. I'd had some throat issues. And my wife came in to see me, and she says, do you remember what the doctor said? I go, I don't know, I think it's not good. And she says, you got cancer, honey. Not only you got cancer, you got stage 4 cancer. So I got involved, and in the beginning it was good news that they said I had a 60% chance of making it. And I go, oh, that sounds really good. That was the odds for people who had this type of cancer. It was 60% that you would survive. And for, I think it was about 3 weeks, I was really thinking, I can be in that 60%. I've always been in the best 60% of whatever I did. You know, I can do this. And the treatment started. And I went to an oncologist, and through all this, I had about 7 doctors before it was all over. I started with the medical oncologist and the radiation oncologist, and they're all looking at my tests, and you have regular scans and you have PET scans. And the PET scan, I had a few of those. That's always one that's never that fun. They shoot you full of nuclear dye, and you got to be still for an hour, and then you put you in this tube, and you got to be still for a half hour in the tube, and they take pictures of your whole body and what's going on. And I got to the oncologist, and he says, well, we need to be aggressive with you. And I go, oh, okay, let's be aggressive. You know, I can handle aggressive. And we're going to try this new type of chemo called Erbitux. It's a different kind of chemo. And I said, that's fine, and we're going to do it once a week for 8 weeks. And I said, okay, I can handle that. And then I went and saw the radiation guy, another doctor, and he says, well, we're going to need to radiate you for 35 straight days. And I said, oh, 35 days in a row, huh? He says, yeah. I said, after the chemo? He says, no, we're going to do it right at the same time. I said, oh, so I'm going to get the chemo and I'm going to be radiated all at the same time. He says, yeah, we need to do that with you. I said, okay. So I'm not picking up on anything yet. I'm just figuring they're going to be aggressive and they're going to save me. Which is what we all want when we're sick. We want to be saved. So then the treatment started. First week, second week, and I'm in my second week of radiation. And it becomes like a club. You know, everyone there's got cancer, so you start talking to one another, right? You know, everyone's got it. So you start saying, what do you got? And, and I'm noticing that everybody comes in and out kind of quick of radiation. And why am I in there so long? And so I start talking to the other patients because I'm getting to know them. We're all there every day. So I'm saying, how many times did they zap you? Did it radiate you? They have these tattoo spots, they radiate you. And one say, I get one place. Another one says, I get 3 places. Another one told me 3 places. Another one told me 3 places. And I'm going, okay. So I go to the techs, and the techs are great, because they just tell you what's up, And I says to the tech, I says, I notice I'm in here longer than everybody else. I'm kind of wondering what's up. He said, oh, well, you get radiated in 9 places. I go, 9? He says, yeah. Yeah, he says, well, didn't you never notice you're in there for a while? And the machine, this huge machine, this monster machine just keeps moving around and getting me from different angles, and this monster machine. And when you have throat cancer, it's kind of interesting. You have like a hockey mask. The goalie hockey mask? Well, you have this huge mask on, and you get on this table, and they bolt you. They literally bolt you to the table so that you can't move. So your head and neck and your whole body is bolted down. So you're bolted to this table, so you're like this. So when they radiate you, they get the right spot. And that's real important. So I said to the tech, I says, you're getting me in 9 places. How come so much? He says, well, didn't they go over all that when you started? They show you the slides and everything. I go, no one ever showed me the slides. And he goes, well, they're supposed to. Check when on your way out. So I'm going out, and I go up to the person, the nurse I always talk to, and I says, no one ever showed me the slides. And she says, oh, that's so-and-so. And so I go to their office, and she goes, oh, you're Mr. Allard. How about if you come in early tomorrow, I'm gonna have someone show you. I said, oh, okay. So I'm still pretty naive about what's going on. And I come back the next day early. This is my 2nd week of treatment. And so I'm still moving around pretty good. I'm still doing okay. And the gal that they had to meet me, she goes, I'm so sorry. The person that was supposed to go over all this with you was kind of afraid. She had never had someone with as much radiation as you're getting. And so she was wanting someone else to do it. I go, oh, okay. Well, and so they take me in this room, they put all these slides up, and I'm looking at all the slides, and there's all these different angles of me, and most of the slides are red, and there's this little yellow spots, So she sits down, and I go, oh, I got it. The yellow is the cancer. And she goes, no, the red is the cancer. I said, well, it's almost all red. She says, yeah, you got a lot of cancer. She says, it's in your throat, it's in your tonsils, it's at the base of your tongue, it's in your lymph glands. She said, it's not good. And I said, oh, so that 60% that survive, I don't really fall into that group. She said, now we're going to give you as much radiation, and you're getting chemo at the same time, as a human can possibly tolerate and stay alive. We're going to give you, you're going to get the max. So you're not going to be doing so good. I'm just trying to be honest with you here. I said, do you think I'm going to make it? She says, well, we're going to do everything we can that you will make it. But she says, you got a lot of cancer, and it's everywhere, and it's in your lymph glands, so it can start spreading throughout your body. So she said, we're going to do all we can for you. So I walk out of there and I go, well, no wonder no one told me that, No one wanted to give me that good news. So I go back and I get the radiation, and the guy said, did they talk to you? I said, oh yeah, they talked to me. I got the story now. So now it's like 2 weeks in, and my face is starting to break out from this Erbitux chemo. It's a new kind of chemo. Imagine high school. Imagine the kid with the worst acne you ever saw in your life. Now imagine 10 times that. And that's what my face started to look like. It was one zit next to the other everywhere. My face, my head, my back, it was everywhere. I basically was looking like a monster. I told my wife I can't go in public anymore. I kind of disappeared from public. You didn't see me around here for months because I basically looked like a monster. And that was the Erbitux. And then came the radiation. By the second week, my throat is, and this is only the second week, my throat is really getting sore, really getting awful. And I'm having a hard time starting to swallow. And they said, are you lined up to get your feeding tube? I go, what do you mean? No one told me about the feeding tube. They go, oh, another week, you won't be able to eat anything. I go, what do you mean? They go, oh, your throat's going to be, just imagine a fire that we keep throwing gas on. That's what your throat's going to be like. We keep throwing gas on the fire every day for 35 days. You know, it's going to be bad. It's going to be awful. And they says, we don't want you to lose weight. You're already losing a lot of weight. And the more, you know, you need to try to stay strong. This is beyond your, you know, being able to handle. And I said, oh. So then, boom, back in the hospital. Next thing you know, pop, boom. I got another hole in my stomach, you know. And it's gone. The feeding tube is gone now. Matter of fact, I have 2 belly buttons now. So they put this tube in, and it's really pretty simple. I mean, I thought it was some big deal, a feeding tube. Basically, it's just a tube stuck through your stomach, and it's got a clip on it, and when you eat, you just take the clip off and you pour stuff in, and it just falls in your stomach. And I'm thinking, there's got to be more to it than that, but that's what it seems like it is. And then I had this little zapper thing where you could push stuff through, and they said never push it too hard. So knowing me, I wanted to check that out. So I really slammed it one day, and it just about knocked me over because the food came through and bam into my stomach. It's like, holy cow, it's like I got punched. I go, that's interesting. But the best story, I'll jump way forward to when I was able to finally start having like smoothies. This is the best story in the tube, to know what the tube really was like. So I can finally have a smoothie. So I had this big purple smoothie, and I just sucked it down. I just woofed it. It's like, I was so happy I could have something through my mouth, because there was months I couldn't even swallow water. So I had this smoothie, and I'm sitting there, and I'm feeling kind of funny. I'm feeling a little funny, like something's getting heavy. And I pull my shirt up and look, and here comes the smoothie. It's coming out. I took it too fast. So it got the stomach was full. So the stomach said, oh, here's an opening. Let's go out this way. So the smoothie's now coming out the tube. I'm looking, I grab my wife, I says, look at this, the smoothie's trying to escape. And if I would have let go of the clip, the whole thing would have come out. I made sure the clip was tight so the smoothie stayed in. So that's the feeding tube, what that's about. And that was week 2. Well, it just got worse. every week was worse. The face was awful, the Erbitux was awful, the hair, we had to take all the hair off because I had all these zits. My whole head was a zit, it was just awful. And the face, and the burn got so bad that, just think you got a first-degree burn, like you touch something on the stove, second-degree burn, then there's third-degree burns. That's the worst burn. I had third-degree burns from here to here. This was all third-degree burns. And there was probably 2-3 months where that was just oozing pus and blood, where I showered twice a day to try to keep it clean, because you couldn't, because it was just a burn. And then guess what? Tomorrow we're going to throw some more gas on the fire, and it just got worse. It got worse. It continually got worse. But thank goodness we got to the end. And then this all started last year, March. Treatment started about the 1st of April. So by the end of May, around June 1st, treatment, thank goodness, was over. And my face slowly started to clear up. And for about 10 days, like the first 10 days of June last year, I actually started to feel better. And I mentioned it to the doctor. He says, well, don't have too much hope yet, because you're only feeling better because we're not burning you every day. He says, if you were getting burnt every day, every single day, and you were getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and finally someone stopped taking the blowtorch to you and burning you, well, naturally you're going to go, oh, this is better. So for about 10 days, I did get better. But it really was kind of like a false better. It was just that I quit getting worse. And I was so used to getting worse that when I wasn't getting worse anymore, it felt great. This comes with throat cancer. They say, not me saying, they say it'll never go away. Your throat will always be dry. It's part of what comes with it. But I'm hoping I get better every week. But we'll go back to June. So I had 10 good days. And matter of fact, I made plans, silly me, to go with my family up to North Carolina in July. But little did I know that after those 10 days of honeymoon period, I just started getting worse again. And it was bad, and the pain was bad. And I was on, from like middle of May to December 1st, I was on a 75 fentanyl patch. Well, for those that don't know, that's a patch they put on you, and that gives you 75 hits of opium around the clock. And I was also taking 8 to 10 hits of oxycodone a day just for what they called breakthrough pain, because the 75 hits of opium wasn't enough. There were days, even with all that, and I was up to that by late May. There were days I would be sitting like at the kitchen table, and my wife would say, how come you're just like, remember Statue Maker when we were kids? We played Statue Maker. She says, you're like a statue. You're like sitting there in a certain way and you're just not moving. I said, because I found a moment where I don't hurt, where I'm not in pain. And I would just grab that position, because as soon as you move from that position, the pain would start. So I kept that position, because even with the 75 fentanyl patch and the 10 hits of oxy, I was still in pain. And I could have went to the next level of painkillers, but then I would have been out. I would have been a zombie. And as it was, for, I would say, 3 months, a big day was when I moved from bed to the couch in the family room to watch a movie. So I would be able to get out of bed and shuffle. My wife always knew when I was coming because I was shuffling. I was like 90 years old, just shuffling my feet through the house. And I'd get out to the couch. She says, I guess you want to watch a movie. I go, yeah, it'd be great. Let's watch a movie. So I laid on the couch and I would watch a movie. And that would be my big movement. Because when I ate, I just was pouring these cans of Ensure in my tube. Because I got to where I couldn't even drink water. I couldn't swallow water because it just hurt too much. The pain was too much. Even with all those drugs, the pain was just too much. So June went by, it got worse. I was supposed to go to North Carolina in July. That didn't happen. Had to give that up. It was unfortunately a wonderful trip we had planned, but my children and their families, my older children, Matt back there, and we'll talk about Matt in a little bit. The older children went and they had a nice time, and they brought me back all kinds of pictures and everything, so that was good. But we were going to the doctors, and we'd go to the doctors, and my wife was starting to get really mad because they said, you keep saying he's going to get better, he's getting worse. He's just getting worse. And I did. I just kept getting worse. I was getting worse. And that was in July. In the beginning of August, I was getting real bad. That's when I was like paralyzed to the bed, and I was in pain all the time, even though I was resting all the time. And in the beginning of August, we went to the doctor, and she says, he's not getting any better. He's going to get better. It's not happening. And it wasn't happening. I wasn't getting better. They said, you'll get better after the treatment ends, like in 30 days, you'll really start getting better. So that was like July 1st. Well, July 1st came and went. August 1st came and went. I didn't get better. So then there was the end of August. I needed a little sip of water to tell this part of the story. So in the end of August, with throat cancer, one of the biggest things that's happening with it is you have all this mucus, constant mucus. So you're always spitting. And I had tissues everywhere in the house. No matter where I went, I could get a tissue. There was tissue boxes everywhere. We should have invested in some sort of tissue company because we were buying tissue, big time. So it wasn't unusual for me to get up from the couch, waddle over to the sink, and spit out some mucus. So it was a Sunday night, the end of August, and I was on the couch watching a movie, and I said, well, I need to go to the restroom, I need to spit some stuff. So I went to the restroom, and I went over to the sink to just spit some stuff, which I thought was just going to be spitting out mucus. And I spit some mucus, and then I felt more coming, and I go, oh, what's this? And I'm spitting, and then I'm like vomiting, but it's not vomit, it's blood. It's all blood. I was projectile vomiting pure blood, oodles and oodles of blood, and I was filling up the kitchen sink, so you know how much it was. And I'm holding onto the kitchen sink, and I drop into my knees, and then my wife figured out what's going on, and she's going to call 911, and Matt comes out of his bedroom, he looks at me, and he goes, oh my God. She sends him out to the street. She says, got an ambulance coming. They come in. Got to have about 6 guys in the kitchen. I'm holding on to the sink. I'm thinking in my head, I go, this is what they're going to say. Bill died at the kitchen sink. I mean, I'm thinking, this is the end. I mean, this blood just is constant. It's coming, and I'm choking on it. But thank goodness I was choking because it was starting to coagulate, and I was pulling out these chunks of blood. It was a horrible experience. And the guys from the ambulance come in, and they got my nose up like this. I go, it's not a bleeding nose. Well, you got blood coming out. I says, it's coming out everywhere. It's from my throat. I'm telling you, it's from my throat. So they're trying to stabilize me. And thank goodness the blood slowed down. And Matt told me later that he was afraid to come back in the house because he figured I was going to be dead on the floor. And later, all the doctors told me they were amazed that I didn't die on that kitchen floor that day. They said, God had to be with you. And then, in my talk, I talk about the name, faith and healing. I always had faith that I would make it. I always thought I would make it. But this was a jarring time. This was a really jarring time when the ambulance took me away. And Matt did great because, I want to give him some accolades here. There was blood everywhere. The kitchen, the walls, projectile, the walls were filled with blood. The EMT guys, some of them stayed and helped Matt clean up. They said they couldn't leave because she went in the ambulance, Chris went in the ambulance with me, and they said, we can't leave this boy with this mess. So they helped him. But there was blood just everywhere. So they zoomed me in the ambulance, and we were so lucky because, they ask you, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? And we live close to a few hospitals, and I looked at Chris, and she works at Morton Plant. So I says, well, if I'm going to be there a while, it'll be handy if I'm at Morton Plant. So I says, take me to Morton Plant. And they go, okay, we'll take you to Morton Plant. It's a little ways, but we'll take you there. I said, okay. Well, I found out later that the only guy in all of Pinellas County, or girl, the only guy or girl in all of Pinellas County that was capable of fixing what I had, which was a bleed from an artery in my throat, was at Morton Plant. God, once again, took care of me. Jesus was riding with me and knew we had to go to Morton Plant. Because we got to Morton Plant, and they didn't know what to do with me. They were looking at it, and they go, hey, we've never seen this before. The people in the ambulance, the guy in the ambulance I'm riding with, and I'm talking to him. I go, you ever seen this before? Somebody bleeding from their throat like this? He goes, I never seen this before. They didn't teach us about this. And I'm going, oh, that's good. Then we get to the ER. They don't know either. They don't know what to do with me. They're going, this guy, oh my God, he's bleeding from his throat. You can't get down there to hold it or anything. And so they brought in it was interesting, the head of ENT, ear, nose, and throat for all of Morton Plant. And this is midnight. This guy, this is a Sunday night, so he was obviously at the beach. He comes in with his flips, and he's got his beach shirt on. Thrilled he showed up. Now it's midnight. I've been there for a few hours, and no one knew what to do with me. So they got the head of ENT there, and he says, you're not going to like this, I'm going to scope you. And I've been used to being scoped. And scoped is what they do is they take this little camera, and they put it up your nose, and it goes down your throat. And then they can see what's going on. He says, no one scoped you since you've been here, right? I go, no, they're all afraid because I'm bleeding, I'm still bleeding. But slow down, it's not much now. He says, well, I got to scope you. I says, yeah, scope me, go ahead. So he scopes me and comes out, and he goes, oh, this isn't good. I go, oh, just what I want to hear. You're in the ER, they don't know what to do with you, and the main guy comes in, he goes, this isn't good. So I go, what do you mean? He says, oh, well, you got a big, huge crater, an ulcer filled with cancer. Here's what happened here, buddy. He says, you got cancer, and you knew you had cancer, but he says, you got this thing about this big. he's showing me, and it's about this deep. He says, where your tonsil is on the right, and it's like a crater there, and it's filled with cancer and infection. And what it is the cancer is kind of taken over, and they've gone so deep into your head that they ate into the artery, and the artery's been eaten into, so that's the artery is what's bleeding. And he said if it would have been a little more, because it was one of the main arteries, if it would have been a little to the one side, it would have hit the main carotid artery, and they says you wouldn't be here. But he says everyone out there in the ER is surprised you're here anyway. They all thought you'd bled to death by now because you're still bleeding. And I says, well, for some reason I'm still here. And they're looking at me, and he says, we have one guy that might be able to fix this, and it's Dr. Lopez. I won't say a lot of names here, but Dr. Lopez is a pretty cool guy. He says, let me call him. So he comes back and he says, okay, you're set for surgery at 5 a.m. I said, well, what are you going to do between now and then? He says, hopefully you won't bleed too much, because you could bleed to death. And I says, okay. So they moved me to intensive care. And then they came and got me. And they told my wife it was going to be, he'll be out in 1 to 2 hours, this procedure. But they didn't know what they had, But the typical scenarios, I'll be out in 1 to 2 hours. It took them, the procedure took 7 hours. I was in there for 7 hours. And I was waiting for the procedure. And Lopez was a cool guy. He comes up to me, and I'm sitting there, and now I'm down in pre-op, and I'm laying there and everything. And he comes in, and he says, let me take a look at it. And he scopes me, and he looks, and he's looking at me, and he goes, it's not good. I says, yeah, everyone said that already. He says, well, what it is he says, your artery's bleeding, and we can't get to it to fix it by going down your throat. He says, because we got to go down your throat to keep you breathing. And now we may have to pop a hole in your neck so that you can breathe that way. We're not sure if we have to do that yet. But he says, the only way I can get to it, I'm going to tell you now, is I got to go up from your groin area through a artery. They'll pick it up on the groin, just like open heart surgery. And they go up, but they got to the heart and went and said, see ya, we got to go higher. And they kept on going up to the throat. So they had to get to it they came up from my groin all the way up to get to the artery, and they had to cauterize it. And he's looking at me, he says, that's what we're going to try to do. And we're going to try to keep you alive, breathing, while we're doing this. But he says, you could bleed to death before we get to it, because we can't pump blood in if blood's coming out as fast or faster than it's coming in. We got to be able to stop this before we really can give you much blood. And he says, he looked me right in the eye, and he says, what do you think? I said, well, you're the guy. What do you think? You're in charge. I'm not in charge anymore. He says, well, I think I might be able to get it, but I don't know. He says, if I don't. I said, yeah, if you don't, I'm not going to make it. I looked him in the eye. I says, Doc, I'm trusting you. Do your best. Do your best. And he turned and looked at me, and he says, well, since everyone thought you'd be dead already and you're not, he says, let's go. We're going to go for it. And I said, let's go for it. It's either that or I lay here and bleed to death. He says, we got to do something. So they went up there and worked it, and somehow I got all done, and I never saw Lopez or anybody. Next thing you know, I was in ICU. And I'm coming awake and everything, and it's like, I'm alive. It's not the angels, So I'm still alive, and I was out of it for the day. And then the next day, the big meeting, this is a fun meeting. The head of ENT guy, he shows up. He's got regular clothes on this time. His beach wear isn't on him. And the head of ICU comes. And he says, we got it. I says, great. That's the good news. Now I'm going to give you the other news. The cancer is there still. I mean, we just fixed this one spot that it was bleeding from. He says there's a good chance that a week, 2 weeks, it's going to get another spot. And if it gets closer to the carotid artery, next time, you could be gone like in a minute. And he says, that's most likely what's going to happen. I said, well, can't we stop the cancer or fix that? He says, there's no one on this side of the bridge that can do that. He says, maybe they can help you at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. He says, let me talk to your ENT surgeon. Let me see what he wants to do. But I would recommend going to Moffitt. They might be able to help you. So I was in there for a few days. I got out of intensive care. I got to the regular room. In the regular room, I got one funny story I got to tell you about the regular room. I'm in the regular room, so I'm starting to feel a little better. I'm in a regular room, right? And there's nobody in there. And they go, oh, you're getting a roommate. And I go, oh, okay. So they get this guy in there, and he just got out of surgery, right? The guy just had surgery, so they give him a menu to order from, right? And this is kind of a heavy-set guy. And I'm laying there watching all this and listening to all this, and I'm like going, why is he going to do that? Maybe he should just have like a smoothie or something. So he wants a burger, fries, shake. And I go, I don't think this is going to go so good. I don't think he should have that. And I'm laying there, and I'm not the doctor. I'm just another patient. And this guy has all this food, right? Well, give him an hour, and you know what's coming on with the food. He's throwing it up everywhere, and it's hitting the screen. I got the screen. Thank goodness the screen between us. And I'm seeing the vomit, boom, flying up against my screen. And I'm going, I knew this was going to happen. I'm laying there. I says, I'm the patient. I could have told them this was going to happen. And this guy's awful. So the next thing, we're at our surgeon's office, and I says, well, you want to scope and look at what the story is? He goes, oh, no one from this moment on in Pinellas County wanted to scope me, because basically what they explain is if they scope me and they nicked, the arteries were exposed, and if they nicked an artery, no one wanted me to bleed to death in their office, basically, is what happened. They go, not on my watch, I ain't scoping you. He goes, we're going to recommend you to the best over there at Moffitt, send you over there, let them see what they can do with you. So they sent us to Moffitt. And that's a neat spot. Man, they got the neatest equipment, everything's new and nice. And they bring me over to Moffitt, and they go, oh, we got to go in there and look at this. We'll knock you out. I go, everyone else was afraid of it. And they go, nah, we'll look at you. We'll go in there and look around. I go, okay, let's do it. So a couple days later, boom, back in surgery again. They take samples. They run all kinds of tests at Moffitt. They wait about 5 days, and they call. And they talk to my wife, and they said, you need to bring your husband in, and any members of the family that are local, why don't you bring them in too? So I'm thinking, this doesn't sound so good, bring members of the family in, I don't know about this. So this is now, we're talking the next month. We're at the end of September. This is September 25th of just this past September. Okay, just this past September. They bring us all in, they put us in a room, and she says, you have so much cancer, and it's like someone threw rice, and it's just everywhere. And it's such a spot where your artery is that we can't operate because we'll hit the artery and we'll kill you. And I go, okay, well, what about that, where they take the people's jaw out and they redo it and they redo their jaw and stick it all back? He goes, I've been reading up, And they go, you're not a candidate for that because you'll bleed to death. Your cancer is so bad that we can't even do that. So what are you telling me? And this is what really got me. My son he just kept repeating this to me. My older son, Eric, he kept repeating to me for the next week. And I go, yeah, I heard it. You don't have to tell me again. She says, well, then the best thing that could happen would be, like in a week, we hit the carotid artery, and it'll be a mess for the people around you, but you'll be gone in less than a minute. It'll be over. You won't have any pain. I go, well, what's the upside you're telling me about? Gee, that's the good thing. What's the other choice? Well, the other choice is it won't hit the artery anymore, and you'll have severe, awful pain for about 6 months, and then you'll be dead, and you'll suffer. You'll suffer a lot for 6 to 8 months. So what you're telling me, this was in September, is that I'm a goner. And she says, I hate to tell you that. You've been real nice in here, and everyone likes you, but we don't have another story for you. That you're done. You have cancer so bad that we can't do anything with it, that we hope that you have a quick bleed and you don't have to suffer, but otherwise you can last 6 to 8 months. So needless to say, my older daughter, Kelly, was there. She lasted about 5 steps to the bathroom, and then she was screaming hysterical, and nobody was enjoying this. And we got out of there and got the car and the quiet ride home. And then we didn't go home. We ended up going we wanted to talk to our own doctors, and they had the results back in Pinellas County. And they said, what's recommended for you is hospice care. That you should get hospice care, you should get your affairs in order, because it could be very quick. And it was recommended, they said, we can give you some chemo that won't cure you, but might give you a few extra months. So at the time I was still dazed, and I said, well, I need to get my affairs in order, and I know what chemo's like. I won't feel like doing nothing. So why don't we wait 2 weeks, and we'll start that chemo in 2 weeks. And they said, okay, that'd be fine. Right now, I'm a goner, so now everyone's willing to give me whatever I want. This guy ain't gonna be around long. We'll do whatever he wants. He's gonna be gone soon. So anyway, the next day, it was 2 days later, it was my wife's birthday. And I've been praying and meditating, and I've been meditating through this whole thing. And I'm in deep meditation, and I've been studying under Sri Amma and Sri Bhagavan from India in meditation, in the oneness meditation. And they come to me in meditation, they speak to me in meditation, they talk to me. And I'm meditating, I'm saying, I guess this is it. But you guys always said in meditation I was going to make it, and it's not looking so good right now. And they says, Bill, you have to keep your faith. Keep your faith. Jesus will come and save you. You'll get saved. God will take care of you. And I says, yeah, but that's not what everyone's saying right now. They say, just have the faith. Just live your life. So I tell my wife, honey, let's live our life. Let's do stuff. Well, I couldn't do much. People had to carry me basically anywhere because I was so weak now. And she started helping me. I started going to some of my son's basketball games. He was playing in some summer leagues. And I hadn't been to any games in months. And the first one, she basically carried me. I had my arm around her. She carried me in and got to the first seats and sat down. And it was her birthday that first night, and needless to say, I was just told her husband's going to die, so she's had a few glasses of wine. And I says, this is your birthday. We're not sitting home and just crying. Let's at least get you some food. And we lived real close to Applebee's. I said, let's order some carryouts from Applebee's. She says, well, how are we going to get it? I said, don't worry about that part. So I says, pull up online, Applebee's menu. And she pulled it up and she ordered some food. So we got the food order, and they told her 15 minutes. And she comes out, she goes, well, now how are we going to get there? I says, I'm driving. She says, how are you going to drive? I said, just help me out to the car. I said, what are you going to do, arrest me? Put me in jail for a DUI or driving under the influence of drugs? I go, I'm ready to die, so big deal, Who cares? Let them arrest me, I really care if they're going to arrest me. So I haven't driven now, and I've been too sick to drive for 5 months. She helps me in the driver's seat because I don't want her getting a DUI. She's my driver. So she's in the passenger seat. And I'm driving up only about 5 blocks, and I'm holding on that steering wheel for dear life. I'm holding on it, and I'm gripping it, and I'm looking over the top of the steering wheel. And I says, all right, I got it. So every block was yeah. And we get up to the Applebee's, and we got her food and everything from the Applebee's. They came out, I gave them a credit card and signed, and I says, now we got to get home. Okay. All right, I can do this. She said, can you do this? I says, I can do this. I got us here. I'll get us home. And I got us home, and we had that and everything. But it was a tough go. It was a very tough go. I'm the first one to say, I had faith, yes, but there were nights when I would wake up. I was taking all these drugs. I'd wake up, I'd take a bunch more drugs, and I'd still be laying there in pain. And I would say, God, if you want to take me now. Please, take me right now. I says, why are you going to have me suffer more? I've been suffering for 6-8 months now, real bad, pain all the time. Just take me now. And there was 2 evenings, and she even remembered that she knew that I was asking God to take me the one night. Please, just take me, God. And God never took me, so here I am. So anyway, we got the first doctor's appointment after everyone says I'm going to die and I should go to hospice. Well, what happened was, it came time for the chemo, and I was feeling a little bit better. So I said, what do I want to take chemo for? That's going to knock me on the ground. I'm feeling a little bit better. Why would I want to take chemo? I said, I ain't taking no more chemo. Enough of that chemo. So I called them up, and they said, well, you're supposed to be here for chemo. I goes, I ain't taking your chemo. Keep it. You can keep that chemo. I'm not taking it. So, because they make a bunch of money if they sell you that chemo. They make a lot of money off that chemo. And I'd had enough chemo. So I refused the chemo. So then they said, well, just go to your radiation doctor. He's the one that was giving me the drugs, because I needed the painkillers, and they only give you enough for a month. So I go to the doctor the first time, and it's been a month now, a month since everyone says I'm going to die. And the doctor's thinking, well, he's supposed to go to hospice. I heard he didn't go to hospice, and who knows what he's like. So my wife and I are sitting here, and he walks in the office, and he doesn't even want to look at me. First of all, this isn't good for his batting average, because I ain't making it. So, lost one. Here he is. And this guy's about ready to croak, so he's not going to look so good. Just the one who I want to look at. But he knows I need drugs, so I got to come see him. So he's walking in like this, and he kind of looks over his shoulder, just like this, to look at me, kind of want to see how bad I really look. He looks and he goes, you actually look better. He's looking at me. He does the double take on me. It's like, huh? He goes, and he walks over to me, he's looking at me, he goes, you actually look better. what are you doing? You must be doing something. And I said, I'm doing 3 things. He goes, what are those? I says, I'm doing G-O-D. Well, I'll admit, when they first told me I was going to die, everybody in the world I knew had a secret remedy. If somebody wanted to stick coffee up my butt, I mean, there was really, everybody had these remedies, So I ignored most of them. I said, I'm just going to go with God. But I did do a few things. And for those that know someone with cancer, I switched my water from acidic water to alkaline water. I was only drinking alkaline water, and they sell this good kind of Publix that I drink, and you can find it on the shelf. I think it's Forever Eternal water, yeah. And I did that. I took a supplement for my immune system called Immune Extra. And it's a supplement, basically, that helps your immune system. And I was taking that. It was a new thing. And it was one of the supplements that my oncologist allowed me to take all the way through treatment. Because he had researched it, and he says, yeah, you can take that. That's good for you. So I took Immune Extra, was a supplement that I took. And I took this tissue drink that was like a, you shake it up, you dump it in water, and you mix it up, and it's called Arginade. And it's supposed to heal your tissue. So I was doing some things. But mainly, I was doing God. And I give thanks to Sri Amma Bhagwan, who taught me meditation, that basically, if I hadn't learned acceptance, I would have never made it. I'd never made it. Because even though I was sick, every day I accepted my situation. So I wasn't angry, I wasn't hateful. Oh, I got cancer. I accepted I was sick, but I always thought, tomorrow's another day, I think I'll be better tomorrow. I think I'm going to be better tomorrow. I may not be good today, I may be on all these drugs, I may be in some pain. I'm accepting that. But I think I'll be better tomorrow. So the doctor on his first appointment, he says, well, I'll renew all your painkillers. He said, see you in 30 days, we'll see what's up. He don't know what to do with me because my diagnosis is that I'm going to die. So I'm not eligible for any more therapies because insurance won't pay. Because they won't pay for therapy for someone whose diagnosis is, you're a goner, go to hospice. That was what I was told. That was on all my charts. So now the second month goes by, and now we're around Thanksgiving. And I go into the doctor, and this time he kind of prances in there, looking at me. And he looks at me and he goes, you look even better. He goes, what's going on? He goes, nurse, bring me those stuff from Moffitt. Bring me those films. Bring me everything. So he's sitting there in front of me reviewing all the stuff from Moffitt and looking at my films and the reports and everything from Moffitt. He goes, well, according to this, by now, you should barely be able to come in here. You should be about dead. And I says, yeah, but I don't feel that bad. He goes, and what are you doing? I says, same 3 things. He says, okay, well, keep going with God. He says, I can believe in God. He says, that's a good thing. God is a good thing. Keep going with God. He says, because we got nothing to give you. And I was taking my Immune Extra and my little Arginade, my tissue things, and drinking the right water and that, and just praying a lot. I prayed a lot. I never gave up. I did, on 2 evenings, specifically ask God to take me. I was in such pain, in such hurt. I can remember 2 evenings, I asked God to take me. Just take me. It's okay. Thankfully, through my years of spiritual work, I wasn't afraid of death. I didn't like the idea of leaving my family. I had a great family, a great life. But I thank God. I said, thank you, God. I've had a great life. If you want to take me, take me. But don't let me suffer like this anymore. You know, I've had enough suffering. I've learned my lesson. Whatever my walk, my path was, you know, just take me. But I kept getting better. So now, December 1st, I remember, December 1st was the first time I said, I'm going to take a little less drugs. So I started weaning off a little bit of the painkillers. December 23rd, remember the date, 2 days before Christmas. This is only a few months back. December 23rd. I'm at the doctor's office. He's looking at me and he goes, boy, you're starting to look pretty good. How you feeling? I said, I get a little better every day. Every week, I'm just a little bit better. And he goes, wow, and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and I know what he's thinking. So finally he says to me, has anybody scoped you since Moffitt? You know, he's wondering if anyone's taking the risk that they're going to kill me by putting that scope in there and not hit the artery and boom, puff goes the dragon for Billy Boy, you know. So he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. I'm going, no one does. No one has. And so I got real close to him. I looked in his eyes. I wanted to see how he reacted. I says, you want to scope me? And he goes, yeah, I do. He says, you're doing so good. I just want to see what it looks like in there. I says, well, let's do it. So he was so scared. You know, usually they put a little something on it so it goes down, you know, because it goes up your nose and down your throat. He put so much gunk on it, he couldn't get it into my nose. I says, what's with all the gunk? He says, well, I figured if we hit something, we would slide off of it, you know. So he says, he gave me like a piece of paper towel, blow your nose. I blow in my nose and getting it all out and everything. And he goes, all right, let's try again. So he's in there and he's looking, because it's a little camera. You know, they go up there. He's looking and you got to sing E, because otherwise you start choking on the thing. So you got to sing E while they're in there. So he's looking. He pulls it out. We're sitting like here. And he pulls it out and he turns his back to us. And I'm thinking right away, he won't look at us. I'm thinking, oh, he saw the cancer. Oh, it's just been what some people think, a honeymoon period. This is the honeymoon period. I'm getting ready to, boom. I'm thinking he's finding all kinds of cancer. He finally turns and he looks at us and he goes, even if in September they said you were going to get better and things were healing, you wouldn't look like this. I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, it's like the cancer was never there. He says, I go, well, what about the hole where the artery, where we blew the artery, you know, and you know, all the deep cancer, the pit there with all that cancer and everything, where they kept telling me the artery's going to go any day. He goes, that's smooth. It's just like new tissue. It's like the cancer was never there. He goes, I go, what do you make it at? He says, I have no idea. He says, I have no idea. He says, because you're healed beyond what you would have been healed even if you were healing. And I said, I looked at him and I said, God's doing a good job, huh? And he says, yes, God is. He says, looks at me and goes, what do you think about a PET scan? You know, because a PET scan is when they put the dye in you and they really can tell if there's cancer in your body. And I said, well, being I'm healing and I'm doing so good, let's give it a month. He goes, that's a good idea. Let's give it a month. So they set me all up for September 27th. September 27th with a PET scan. And that was December 23rd. So I had a happy Christmas. I can't find anything. This is looking good. This is looking good. And I went to a basketball tournament in Gainesville and had fun, and I still wasn't able to eat much. Finally, while waiting for the PET scan, the first week of January, got the tube out, and that was as sophisticated as the tube. we go to the doctor's office. You know, this feeding tube, it's keeping me alive for like 9 months, so it's my baby, you know. But now I'm starting to be able to drink things, smoothies. I can drink the Ensure that was basically I was living on. So we go in the doctor's office, and I got to tell this quick little story. He says, lay down. I said, okay. So I'm figuring he's going to hit me with some number, or, you know, or do something, or cut it out, or whatever. He says, now, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, be prepared for a little pain. I said, okay. So I've been wondering what he's going to do. I still don't know what he's going to do. He goes 1, 2, and on 2, he just grabs the tube and yanks it out of my stomach. He just yanks it right out. And I'm going, pop, boom, oh. I'm laying there, a little blood squirting out. He said, oh, yeah, fix that up, a little gauze, you know. He, gauzes it up. He says, you'll be surprised how fast you'll heal. And he's holding the gauze on it. He goes, just a Band-Aid. Puts a Band-Aid on it, and that's it. Tube's out. Just like that. Just yanks it. And he took with 2 hands. It was like, whoa, like that. I was like, holy cow. And that's how my tube came out. So tube's out. I'm doing better. January 27th comes. They put me in the tube. You know, they shoot you full of dye. You wait for an hour. They stick you in the tube. You got to be still. That's the worst part, because and what I did do. Because I'm still got all these painkillers that I'm just starting to wean off of, and every time you wean off of some, you're kind of going through a withdrawal. So I take the extra painkillers to kind of knock myself out while I'm going to be in this tube. So I go in the tube. I'm kind of knocked out in there. I'm kind of happy because I overdosed myself a little. You know, like, this is okay. You know, so I get in the tube, come out, go home. So now we're on pins and needles. We're on pins and needles. Because the appointment is on the 29th to go find out the story. And we had the test on the 27th. So the phone rings on the 28th. My wife answers, and there's someone from the doctor's office saying, did nurse so-and-so talk to you? No. And she comes and gets me. I'm in the other room. She says, did the nurse call you, from the doctor's office? I go, no, I didn't talk to her. And then the person talking to her says, hold on, get your husband, I'm getting a nurse. So they get me. She says, I know you're coming in here tomorrow, and we knew you weren't sleeping tonight. She says, we can't explain it, but we wanted to tell you, nowhere in your body is any trace of cancer.